Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Nick and I talk all about trading and investing, mostly in Forex and indices and commodities. But today we are going to be taking a look, as we do every Sunday, at the week ahead and potential price action setups or technical analysis that we can do on some of these key markets that you can see over here. I've got them highlighted on my watch list. For those of you guys who do have this tool, the A1 Trading Dashboard, you can actually adjust your watch list at any time just by going to the expert properties and changing these to whatever you want. So you can actually see I made the change to add in gold and S&P, and then I just applied those changes, and now you can see on the trends tab, I can see those things being shown as far as what the overall indications of that market is. If you have not already gotten this tool, there's a link down below in the description. I say so because I realized that one of the payment options that was on there was kind of broken. So if you were trying to get it before, I do apologize for that, but it is available now. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these markets, and let's tab over to the first one, which is going to be Euro USD. Now, Euro dollar has been a pretty dang good pair for me in the last few months as we've been on this pretty strong uptrend. Mostly because as soon as we switched to that upward bias, meaning above that 200-day moving average, and held it for a while, I was looking for longs, and almost every pullback to this key zone you can see being drawn has essentially been held. Now, this is the pullback zone drawn by the A1 Trading Dashboard, and you can see when we put it on there, what it generally shows is just areas on the chart where a lot of times price pulls back to, it jumps, it kind of pulls back to, and then the trend kind of jumps and continues, right? So it's, of course, no indicator is perfect, but I like having it on my chart. And so if you see that and you don't know what it is basically a pullback zone that uses moving averages to build a zone of pullback. Now you can see more specifically that recently we've been in that pullback zone, and that is very interesting to me because we've actually held the bottom of this really well. And so my bias here, Euro USD, still very bullish. Okay, you can see that this week we did get some bearish price action on the euro dollar. These are daily bars, so if we look at the daily chart, we can get back to the front here, you can see had multiple days where we were down, and then this week we started to rebound off of those lows. Now the question will be, can we break through some of this structure here? Let's draw in some points of resistance that we are currently facing, like this area here at the 1.2170 level. You can see this past resistance held support. We broke back underneath it though during this pullback, and now you can see price trying to get through it on Friday, but didn't quite break through there convincingly. I'm going to be watching for that to break up on the lower time frames today, and looking for not today, but this week, and looking for opportunities to look to get long and ride that. In fact, let's drop it down here. We'll take a look at the 1 hour chart for a moment, and let's take a look at that a little bit more on the granular level. So looking at Euro USD on the 1 hour chart, you can kind of see that we've got this kind of upward channel. We've got this upward price action. Again, we're in the context of a long-term bullish trend, a short-term counter trend on the daily chart. And now we're looking at the 1 hour chart to get an idea of what's going on. So let's delete that trend line for a moment. We can draw this at a little bit more granular of a level. And you can kind of see we've got this resistance point here, right? This previous top multiple times. And I know this line is drawn not to perfection, and that's kind of on purpose. Trend lines and horizontal levels of support and resistance, they're never going to be perfect because people are drawing them different ways, right? We're drawing them on the 1 hour chart here, so I guess you could argue, oh, we should draw it like this, and but then someone else might come along and draw it like this, right? So you have different people drawing it different ways. So generally speaking, what I do when I'm looking at a level is I just generally draw it a rough cut, right? Because I think that that's probably more accurate anyways than trying to get pinpoint with it. And I've definitely had people on my channel before say like, oh, you need to draw it exactly like this to get the perfect entry and all that sort of stuff. But the reality is the perfect entry doesn't really exist. But anyways, what I love about this is that on the Euro USD on the 1 hour chart, you can see uptrend overall, buy setups kind of forming again and again. We're in this pullback zone, which I really, really like. And any sort of break above that level that we drew on the one day chart, looking for it on the 1 hour chart is, for me, really bullish. So I like the idea of any sort of breakout, pullback, retest, and trying to go long next week on the euro dollar. So that's my thought so far on EU. Let's move on to the next pair. We'll just go here and jump over to the next chart, and we can take a look at GBPUSD. So also, I forgot to ask at the beginning of the video, if you guys are watching and you're enjoying my content, please leave a like down below. It does help to show, the YouTube algorithm that you want to see more of this content, and it benefits you because what you like to watch, YouTube will keep showing it to you. So if you want to see more trading content, then definitely leave that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you are not already. Okay, let's look at the pound dollar here. And I want to do a similar step. So I want to go to the 4-hour chart, maybe the daily chart first. Daily chart just pretty much chugging to the upside, right? We've just seen this kind of choppy uptrend, kind of a unique style for GBPUSD, but it kind of makes sense because we have a lot of Brexit news recently. We have, the market is moving higher, but we're seeing sudden pullbacks and sharp movements. And so we're getting this kind of choppy, strange looking chart, right? Look at all these, bullish engulfing. I bet if we turned on the bullish engulfing scanner really quick, you can see all sorts of bullish engulfings. Here's one, here's one, here's one, right? We've got them all over the place. So, and I wonder, would we see bearish as well? Yep, we got some bearish pin bars. I'm sorry, bearish engulfings there as well. So we're seeing all sorts of back and forth sharp price action. But what about bullish pivots? Are there any areas that stick out here on the bullish pivot side? Because I am bullish on this because we are above that 200-day, right? And we seem to be in a pretty strong uptrend, and any sort of pullback to me looks interesting. One of the bigger pullbacks that catches my eye is, of course, where we see these three blue little pivot points. And all this shows is that, okay, at these points, there was a sharp V. And that's what I look for very strongly in my analysis, looking for sort of pullback zones or areas of interest. When we see these sharp V-shaped movements, that is a signal for me to look to go long in an uptrend. So with that said, maybe we can draw a general line around this area, right? So we've got what was resistance here. Sellers were holding this area, price broke through it, and then held it here, here, and here. So any sort of retest, if we do see one, might be worth looking out for to go long and basically look for that continuation of that daily trend. It's very possible that we could see some bigger pullback here on the GBPUSD pair because we are drifting a little bit further away from that 200 period moving average. And naturally, a lot of times what markets do is when they do get far away from those moving averages, they snap back or they pull back to find fresh buyers, or if they're in a downtrend, fresh sellers. So we'll be looking out for that. I think that's not really in the books for this week, but that is really the biggest area of interest for me in the pound dollar. Could be next week. We'll see. But whenever it does start to pull back, there may be some opportunities to look for trend continuation. Okay, let's turn that off and let's just tab over to the next one. And if you're wondering how I'm doing that, the tool actually has the feature. When I was developing this was like priority number one for me, is when I'm on MetaTrader, I don't want to drag charts over and flip through tabs. I just want to click a button and show me the next one, right? So I can just look at all my charts very quickly. And that saves me a lot of time because when you're a trader and you're actively looking at charts, it requires you to do a lot of chart movements, or I guess switching charts. Anyways, let's see what we can get into on the dollar yen. I really have just not been a big fan of this pair in the last several months. It's just been so choppy, and the price action is not great in my opinion right now. Maybe on the lower time frames, there's some, maybe news plays, or if something comes out and, the market gets moving, maybe you could look for some, I think there was some decent moves here if you were looking for short-term bullishness, but again, still not my favorite thing because, again, that 200-day is bearish, right? So generally, I'm looking more for sell trends. Okay, or sell trades. Let's see, dollar Swiss, anything here? Maybe trend continuation to the south side we could look for on this daily chart would be if we pulled back a little bit more. Let's get that out of the way for a moment. But it already seems that we are finding some resistance in this area towards the end of last week. Actually, you know what? I like drawing, let me draw it with the trend line because I like drawing it a little bit more simplified. There we go. Okay, so with dollar Swiss, what we're seeing is we're seeing this area more specifically being, what is that level? That is the 0.8920 level, let's say, holding as resistance, right? Multiple times price came up to this area, found resistance. We are in that pullback zone, which is an added sell benefit for me. In fact, if we go to, let's see, the signals tab, it's saying, a slight sell, okay? And so what that means is you can see the evaluation that the tool gives. It's got a neutral RSI. The trend state is a strong bearish trend, which we can see from the pullback zones and the 200-day moving average. Pullback reading is that it is not in a pullback zone. It just actually is outside of it. So maybe the sell would have been stronger up in this area. Actually, I'm almost sure because that would have been a +1 on the reading. And then price action reading trending lower overall. That's just looking at the overall price action in the recent, like, I think it's like 200 bars or maybe less than that, maybe like 100 bars or so. And then the 200 SMA is bearish, of course. So that's what we've got. We've got a general sell reading. And I actually agree with the way this tool has printed this, because I'm not interested so much in selling right here, but I would have loved to be, I know this is hindsight speaking, but I would have loved to be selling up in this area at resistance in the pullback zone. And if it repeats, if it tries to tag one more time, maybe there is a sell setup. In fact, the ultimate setup, I guess the best setup that I see here personally would probably be if we saw something like this. We tagged that long-term trend line to the downside, pullback zone, trend line, or I guess horizontal level of resistance, and then we have that long-term bearish momentum. All of that, USD Swiss might be the sell trade that I'm looking for. So that's something I will be looking out for going into this week. That's actually probably one of my top on the list trades if we do see some bullishness on the US dollar this coming week. AUDUSD, pullback opportunities looking long. If, again, that also suits our, if we have a USD bullish week, right, then that could cause AUD and NZD, right, to come down, which could cause some pullback here. Pullbacks to look out for. Let's see if there's anything, I guess. Let's see. We've got this area. We've got this area. And that's really the main. Well, I guess you could argue we've got this area as well. We've got a couple different areas of support to think for. Actually, I think this one probably is the strongest, just because you can see we consolidated here. We retested this area, found bullish support. Overall, I would say that is a decent area to consider. And then also, of course, we could go lower time frame and see that there is some downtrend structure for the time being. We've got that lower high in place. We've got some downward trend line structure here, right? So, of course, I think on AUD and New Zealand dollar, I think probably the downtrend could continue for the time being. We're kind of in this range up at the top, right, where we've got just kind of this downward structure, but overall uptrend. So for me, that just means looking out for, this counter trend to find a bottom. And, sometimes people ask me, Nick, do you ever trade reversals? And it's a yes and no. So I'm trading with the trend here, right? If I look at the daily chart, my tool and my analysis, they all point to bullishness. However, when I'm looking on the lower time frames, look at the 1 hour chart. If I'm looking to buy this thing, actually maybe the 4 hour chart, like if I'm looking to buy this thing at this level here that we have printed, by then this is going to look like a downtrend, right? So in some ways, yes, I'm trading a reversal. It's just not, reversal of the dominant, like longer term trend. So what I usually do in my analysis is, I'm mostly a trend trader on the higher time frames. So I'm a swing trader. I'm not a day trader. I don't scalp the market personally. I guess some people, for each their own. But for me, I like to trend trade on the higher time frames and just ride momentum of the overall Forex market. So when I'm looking at this, yes, this will actually look counter trend when this thing, if this thing, right? We don't know what's going to happen, but if this thing starts to break structure and looks bearish, then yeah, I would be counter trend trading on the lower time frames. But in the long term, I'm just going with the trend and trying to buy a pullback. So just to clarify that concept. Let's skip New Zealand dollar because it looks basically the same here. USD CAD, am I going to skip this one? Similar analysis to USD Swiss. I think there may be some pullback opportunities here actually. Yeah, I like that a lot. USD CAD selling the dollar in favor of the Canadian dollar if we stretch just a bit more. Again, another example of on the lower time frames, this looks counter trend, but on the higher time frames, looking for that trend trade. Right? Because if you're just looking at, and we can show it, let's look at the 30-minute chart. Trying to sell this, doesn't that look dangerous, right? Because we're like, oh, trending up. But it's, again, it's all relative to the time frame you're looking at. We go back to the daily chart. This thing is sell city, right? It's just bearish. So something to think about. Now, for the longer term counter trend traders, for me, there's nothing wrong with being a longer term counter trend trader either. As long as you understand that, it's not easy to do that. However, if we see something like, if I'm wrong about that, if I just completely airball it, right? Looking for something like this, that actually might be a counter trend trade that makes sense. But for me, generally, if I'm going to counter trend on the higher time frames, I'm looking for a strong break of the current trend, like a clear sign that, hey, the sellers are no longer in charge here. With that said, let's see what else we got. Let's take a look at gold, because I know gold is a popular one. Gold has been holding this 200-day moving average. I had a conversation with Frank recently at how, price just seems to just want to hold this level. And I think that is bullish, because longer term, again, another story of, here's actually a better example of counter trend on that 4-hour, and you could even argue on that daily chart, but that long term, like the weekly and the 200-day moving average, are bullish. So this, in the grand scheme of things, look at the weekly chart. This looks bullish, right? At least it does to me. I guess you have your own opinion. But for me, this looks bullish because you've got kind of, this strong uptrend, retesting, strong uptrend, retesting, looking for continuation. All I'm trying to do with my trading, I'm not trying to predict the next big thing. I'm just trying to ride what trends are showing me in the markets. And right now, the trend on gold is still bullish. Similar to Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is in an uptrend right now, and trying to fight that or trying to short that is a dangerous thing, because we let our personal biases get in the way of what otherwise could be a great trend to try and ride. Just my 2 cents. And let's finally talk about the S&P 500 on the daily chart here. Uptrend, I took a really, really good trade this week. I got to pat myself on the back here. You guys know how it is. I got to pat myself on the back whenever I can, since, sometimes it's not so frequent. Sometimes it's frequent. That's just how trading goes. Sometimes you have winners, sometimes you have losers. But I did fortunately catch nearly the bottom of this move. I put out a video. You can check it out if you'd like, about this trade in particular. But I bought around here, rode that thing past the highs of the S&P 500, closed out for a profit there on the retest, or on the pullback a little bit, just to lock in profits, as well as kind of take as much as I could out of that trend. I was up here and I had the temptation. I posted on my Instagram. I said, hey, I'm struggling not closing out a winning trade, because this thing is pretty aggressive, and when it moves in your favor a lot, it can be very nice. And when it moves against you, that's another story. But again, as long as your stops are in place and your risk management is in check, generally speaking, that's a much better place to be in. So anyways, took a trade on this one last week, and for me now, still looking for bullish opportunities. In fact, any sort of pullback to, maybe this level, looking for anything that we're above that 200 by quite a bit. So any trades that I would take on the bullish side, I would keep that stop relatively tight, right? Let's say I bought there, I'd be putting that stop relatively tight, because if price were to become, bearish and we have another slip, you can see a similar pattern on the S&P 500, where we get these long bullish strands, and then we get these quick sell-offs, right? And so is that going to happen? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. However, if price does decide to start looking that way, I will very quickly exit any long positions I have, so that I don't get caught like the people back here that were heavily long and buying into this market towards the top, right? That is very, very dangerous, trying to jump in there with a leverage position. Now, if you're investing long term, then even this was a bump in the road, and you just held and took a long time to, or I guess you just took some time to wait it out. But if you're actively trading this thing with leverage, again, I'm out of the way as soon as things don't go my way. I sound like a bratty, like 15-year-old kid. Like, when it doesn't go my way, I'm out of there. When it goes my way, I just try and hold on to it as much as I can. Guys, that's everything I've got for the week ahead. I know this one was longer than usual, but really, if you did make it to the end of the video, please comment down below that you did. I really, really do appreciate you guys who make it to the end of my videos. It actually seriously means a lot to me, because, when I first started this channel, it was just me in my college bedroom, like sharing my trade ideas and struggling as a trader myself and figuring things out, and sharing some of my successes and failures. So if you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for taking the time to watch my content. Please leave a like if you did enjoy the video, and we will see you back in the next one.